Craigslist has always been a bit of a gamble, but I've never been one to shy away from a good deal. I've picked up furniture, tools, even a used grill once, all for free or dirt cheap. A few awkward handshakes, some weird conversations, and the occasional no-show, but nothing I'd call dangerous. It was a quiet Saturday morning when I saw the post. I'd been scrolling the free section with no real purpose when it caught my eye. A push mower, older but clean, labeled in bold letters. Free, works great. The description was short and casual, said the owner had upgraded to a riding mower and just wanted it gone. There were two pictures, both clearly taken in a garage. The floor was concrete with oil stains, and there was a cluttered workbench in the background. The mower looked like the kind you see in every suburban shed, a little worn but still solid. At the bottom of the post, the seller had left an address and a note that the garage door didn't work, so whoever came to get it would have to enter through the house. Said to text when on the way. Signed it with just a first name. I sent a text asking if it was still available. The reply came back fast, like he'd been holding his phone. Still got it. Come by anytime today. The address was on Route 19, past the old Miller's gas station. I knew the area well enough. The gas station had been boarded up for years, the pumps long gone, the lot cracked and overrun with weeds. Beyond it, the road gets quieter, the houses more spaced out, the trees closing in on either side. It was about a 15-minute drive. I didn't think twice. I figured even if the mower didn't run perfectly, I could tinker with it. I had the tools, and I liked fixing things. The day was overcast, heavy clouds hanging low. The air felt thick and damp, the kind of weather that makes colors look muted. When I reached the gas station, its boarded windows and faded paint looked even more lifeless than usual. I drove past it, scanning the road until I spotted a narrow driveway half hidden by tall grass. The mailbox out front leaned to one side, rust eating through the metal. Faded numbers barely clung to it. The driveway was cracked and uneven, with weeds pushing through the gaps. The house sat far back from the road, 2 stories with peeling blue paint that had faded almost entirely to gray. One of the upstairs windows was boarded up. A large tree out front had dropped branches across part of the yard, which hadn't been mowed in a long time. I pulled in slowly, my tires crunching over gravel and broken asphalt. The garage was attached to the left side of the house, the big door closed. No sign of the mower. I sent a quick text saying I was there. Almost instantly, the front door opened. A tall, thin man stepped out onto the porch. His jeans were worn and faded. His dark t-shirt hung loose on his frame. His hair looked messy, like he just rolled out of bed, and his face was hard to read from a distance. He raised one hand in acknowledgement, then gestured for me to come over. I got out of the car and walked up the driveway toward the porch. There was a faint smell in the air, something musty and stale, like a damp basement. The closer I got, the stronger it became. He said the garage door was busted, so we'd have to go through the house. He stepped back, holding the door open for me. The moment I crossed the threshold, I realized how dark it was inside. No light from the windows, no lamps. It felt like stepping into a cave. The air was heavier inside, the musty smell stronger. He mentioned the power was out, said he'd been meaning to get it fixed. I took out my phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, showing a narrow hallway with peeling wallpaper and a stained carpet that squished slightly under my shoes. He raised a hand against the light, like it bothered him, and muttered something about pointing it away. I lowered it toward the floor, but didn't turn it off. There was no way I was walking blind in here. The hallway led to a kitchen. My light caught details as we walked. Dust-covered furniture pushed against the walls, stacks of old newspapers on the floor, cobwebs hanging from corners. I didn't see any signs of recent living. The kitchen was stripped bare. Empty counters, a broken ceiling fan hanging at an angle, cabinet doors missing or hanging crooked. A single plate sat in the middle of the counter. Something dried and dark stuck to it. On the far side of the kitchen was the door to the garage. He opened it and stepped through, motioning for me to follow. The garage was just as dark as the rest of the house. No windows, no light from outside. My beam moved over stacks of boxes, old tools, and in the center, a beat-up car with dust caked on the surface. The mower wasn't in sight. I started to ask where it was when my light caught movement. On the far side of the car, Near the back wheel, there was a figure crouched low, a man. He was partially hidden behind the car, his head just high enough to see over the hood. He wasn't moving, just staring straight at me. His eyes caught the light and reflected it in a way that made my stomach drop. For a few seconds, my brain didn't process what I was seeing. Then a cold, electric feeling shot through my chest. I stepped back without thinking. My light flicked to the man who'd led me in here. He was just standing there, silent, his expression unreadable. I heard myself ask who the other man was, but my voice sounded distant, like it didn't belong to me. Neither of them moved. Something in me broke open then, a deep, primal instinct that didn't wait for logic or explanations. My feet turned me around and I was moving, pushing back through the kitchen, down the hallway, toward the front door. I could feel them behind me without hearing them. My phone light bobbed wildly across the walls as I ran. The porch steps came fast. My foot slipped on one, but I caught myself, bursting out into the damp, gray air. My keys were already in my hand. I fumbled with them, my breath loud in my ears. The car door yanked open, and I was inside, slamming it shut. Before I could even start the engine, shouting erupted behind me. I didn't look back. The engine roared to life, and I slammed it into reverse, gravel and weeds spraying as I tore down the driveway. When I hit the road and glanced in the rearview mirror, they were there. Both of them. The man from the porch and the crouching figure from the garage, running down the driveway toward me. They weren't walking. They weren't even jogging. They were sprinting, arms pumping, closing the distance far faster than they should have been. I floored it, the engine straining as I tore down Route 19. My hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. I didn't slow down until I was miles away, pulling into a gas station to catch my breath. My hands were trembling as I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. I told the dispatcher exactly what happened, gave the address, said I thought someone was in danger. She said she'd send officers to check it out. About half an hour later, an officer called me back. He asked me to confirm the address. When I did, there was a pause on the line. He said that property had been vacant for years. No power, no water. It was in foreclosure, the last owner long gone. They'd gone through the house and found nothing but dust and old junk. No car in the garage. No sign of anyone living there. I sat in my car long after the call ended, staring at the steering wheel. My body still hummed with leftover adrenaline, at my mind replaying every second of what happened. The darkness of the house, the smell. The man crouched behind the car, waiting. I can't stop thinking about what would have happened if I'd walked closer, if I'd let them get between me and the door. I don't think they were ever planning on giving me a lawnmower. I'd been scrolling Craigslist late at night, looking for quick cash jobs. My rent was coming up, and the idea of a couple hours of work for decent pay sounded good. I stumbled across an ad in the gigs section. Need strong person for moving job, $200 cash, tonight only. Simple, straightforward. It just said a man needed some boxes moved from his basement into a moving truck in the driveway. It stressed it was urgent and must be done tonight. No other details. I emailed him, half expecting not to hear back, but within 5 minutes he replied with his address, saying to come by at 10:30 p.m. He'd have cash ready. I hesitated at the late hour, but I told myself it was fine. People move at odd hours sometimes. The address was in a quiet suburban neighborhood about 30 minutes from me. I drove over, passing dark, neatly kept houses. His was at the end of a cul-de-sac, 2 stories, pale siding, a couple of dark windows upstairs. The driveway was empty, no moving truck like he'd mentioned. I sat in my car for a second, wondering if I had the right place, then a tall man stepped out from behind the house. He was thin, almost lanky, with pale skin that caught the glow of the porch light. He wore dark slacks and a button-up shirt, which felt too formal for moving boxes. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "You're here for the job," he said softly, as if not to disturb someone inside. I nodded, stepping out of my car. He didn't offer his name, just turned and unlocked the front door, motioning me in. Inside, the air was cool, unnaturally cool, like the AC was cranked way up. The place was nearly empty. A couple of chairs pushed against a wall, no pictures, no clutter. The living room looked like it belonged to a staged house, except there was no warmth to it. "The basement's this way," he said, leading me toward a door off the kitchen. His voice was still soft, almost careful. The basement was dim, lit only by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. The concrete floor looked freshly cleaned, like it had been scrubbed hard. The smell hit me right away, bleach, strong enough to make my nose sting. Along the far wall were about 6 cardboard boxes, all taped shut with thick packing tape. No markings, just plain, heavy-duty boxes. "You can start with those," he said. "Bring them up to the front door. I'll take them from there." I bent down to grab the first box. It was heavier than I expected, maybe 30 or 40 pounds. I carried it upstairs. When I set it down in the entryway, I noticed he was standing right next to the door. As I went back for the second box, I heard the sound of a deadbolt sliding shut. I glanced over. He was locking the front door again. That struck me as odd. Why lock the door while I was making trips in and out? When I came back up with the second box, he was there again, locking it after I passed through. He didn't explain. By the third trip, I was starting to feel uneasy. There was something strange about how silent the house was. No TV, no hum of appliances. Just the sound of my footsteps and that faint squeak of the deadbolt each time. The fourth box was when I heard it. A faint noise, muffled, almost like a cough or maybe a groan. I froze halfway to picking it up. It came from one of the remaining boxes against the wall. I stayed still, listening. There it was again, just for a second, like something shifting inside. I looked up at the stairs. He was standing at the top, watching me. His expression hadn't changed, but now it felt heavier. His head tilted slightly. "Something wrong?" he asked. I swallowed, forcing a casual shake of my head. Just thought I heard something. He didn't move, didn't blink. I grabbed the box closest to me, but not the one I thought the noise came from, and carried it up. This time, as I passed him, I noticed his hand resting lightly against the basement door, like he could slam it shut at any second. When I came back down, I decided to check. I crouched next to the box I'd heard the noise from and pressed my ear to it. Nothing. Then, just as I was about to stand, a faint thump came from inside. My stomach knotted. That wasn't the sound of something shifting from movement. That was something hitting the inside. I stood quickly. He was still at the top of the stairs, leaning just slightly forward now. "You're doing fine," he said, voice lower. "Just a few more to go." I forced a nod, grabbed another box, and started up. Halfway, I heard him following. His footsteps were slow, deliberate, keeping pace behind me. At the top, I set the box down by the door. That's when I noticed the lock again. This time, I waited, pretending to adjust my grip on the box until he reached for it. Then I stepped back suddenly and tried the doorknob. Locked. Deadbolt, too. I turned to him. "Why are you locking the door every time?" His smile disappeared. His face went completely neutral, eyes flat. "Just habit," he said. I didn't believe him. He stepped closer, his height making him seem to loom over me even more in the narrow space. "Why don't you grab the last 2? Then we'll be done." His tone was different now. Less polite, more directive. I walked back toward the basement, my mind racing. I could feel him just a few feet behind me. At the bottom, I grabbed the box nearest the stairs without looking at the others and started back up. Halfway, I heard it again, the muffled thump, louder this time, like someone inside the box was trying to get attention. That's when my instincts took over. I didn't go up to the front door. I veered sharply into the kitchen. His voice rose behind me, sharp, telling me to stop. I didn't. The kitchen window was small, but it was my only option. I shoved the box onto the counter, popped the latch, and pushed it open. Cold night air rushed in. I swung a leg through just as his footsteps pounded into the kitchen. Something brushed my back, his hand, grabbing for my shirt, but I yanked forward, falling onto the grass outside. I scrambled up and sprinted to my car. I didn't look back until I was in the driver's seat with the engine roaring. He was standing in the driveway, holding one of the boxes under his arm, watching me, not moving. I drove until my hands stopped shaking enough to use my phone. I called the police, gave them the address, and told them everything. A couple hours later, an officer called me back, said they checked the place. The house had been foreclosed for months. No furniture, no man matching that description. No boxes. I still think about those muffled sounds, and what would have happened if I'd opened one. Or worse, if I hadn't left. I should have never responded to that Craigslist ad. Not because I'm paranoid or overly cautious, just because sometimes desperation clouds judgment. And that week, I was desperate enough to ignore every red flag that should have screamed at me. It all started with the rent. I'd been scraping by, juggling part-time shifts at a diner and freelance gigs that barely paid the bills. Then my hours got cut again. My savings were stretched thin. When I saw the ad for a house sitter paying $200 a day for 2 weeks, I thought I'd hit the jackpot. The ad was brief and to the point. Large Victorian house on East Side. Must stay on site 24/7. No guests, no pets. Payment up front. No photos, no fluff. Just those stark details. I emailed, introducing myself, mentioning I'd done house sitting before for family. The reply came quickly from a man named Mr. Hawthorne. He was straightforward. Traveling overseas on urgent family business. Needed someone to water the plants, collect mail, and keep the place from falling into disrepair. He promised payment before I even arrived and gave me the address and instructions for the lockbox containing the key. The money was wired into my account the day before I moved in. A sizable sum for 2 weeks. When I arrived, the street was quiet, lined with aging oaks and cracked sidewalks, the kind of neighborhood that felt frozen in time. The house itself was imposing. A 3-story Victorian with peeling white paint, a sagging porch wrapped in iron railings, and an overgrown yard tangled with wildflowers and weeds. I found the lockbox on the porch and retrieved the key. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, stale air greeted me, thick with the scent of old wood, damp carpet, and a faint trace of tobacco smoke. I set my bags down in the dim foyer and flicked on the lights. The house swallowed sound whole, the ticking of an ancient clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant creaks of the settling floor. I was alone. The first 2 days passed without incident. I watered the porch plants, collected the occasional junk mail, and tried to keep the place tidy. The internet was sluggish, the TV static-laden, but it was shelter. Then I noticed him. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow flickering among the oak branches across the street. But as dusk settled, I caught a figure standing there. A man, silent, motionless, watching. He wore a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low. Our eyes met briefly. His were cold, blank, unreadable. Then he turned and disappeared into the gathering night. I locked every door and window, pulled curtains tight, and told myself it was nothing, just a weird coincidence. But every evening at the same time, the man returned. Across the street, beneath the oak, he'd appear and watch. The feeling of being observed clawed at me. Nights stretched unbearably long and silent, broken only by the sound of my own breath. Then came the knocking. One night, around midnight, soft tapping sounded at the back door. Tap, tap, tap. Slow and deliberate. My heart hammered. I froze, clutching my phone. The knocking continued for nearly 5 minutes, then stopped as suddenly as it had started. I didn't answer. The next morning, the porch light lay shattered. Glass glittered on the steps like sinister confetti. I called Mr. Hawthorne to report it. His voice was flat, tired. A vagrant, probably. The police have been notified before. Don't worry, just keep the doors locked. But worry rooted deep in my chest. I installed security cameras at the front porch and backyard. That night, the footage captured a shadow slipping between bushes, moving silently, vanishing whenever the porch light flickered. Then, the note appeared. Taped to the front door the next morning was a scrap of paper. Leave. This isn't your place. I stared at it, my fingers trembling. I called the police again. They took a report, told me they'd send patrols, but without signs of forced entry or injury, their hands were tied. The man grew bolder. One evening, I spotted him outside my bedroom window. Motionless, staring, eyes glinting with something I didn't want to name. Then, the shattered window. Glass shards scattered across the floor, sharp and cold. I was lucky to have been elsewhere when it happened. I packed a bag, called the police one more time. Mr. Hawthorne's number was disconnected. The police didn't believe me. Without proof of forced entry or assault, I was alone. That night, I slept at a motel. Weeks later, news trickled in that Mr. Hawthorne had been arrested for stalking and harassment, using the caretaker as bait, terrorizing victims in his own home for twisted pleasure. The man? A hired accomplice. The house was sold, but the nightmares stay. The cold eyes in the dark, the shattered glass beneath my bare feet, the trapped feeling of being hunted in a stranger's house. I should have never responded to that Craigslist ad.